We are project. Liberia, Mama Liberia. Must all rise. Let's stand together. Fight Corona.
This is an audio of the book, The Golden Science of Tough Times, COVID-19, Pathways to Overcoming, Thriving, and Remaining Positive and Resilient when All Hell Breaks Loose. Written and published by Dr. Gbollie and Decelia Chesson-Wureh, read by Matthias Labandi, Grace Tawo, and Michael Toll. The Golden Science of Tough Times, COVID-19, is a mind-expanding, motivational, well-researched, and experience-rich, life-changing book that provides pathways to psychologically overcoming crisis. Charles and Decelia share their rich experiences and empirical evidence to help you respond, embrace, and navigate through tough times by unveiling proven ways and practical positive actions. This book also provides notable lessons of the pandemic to help you find hidden opportunities in adversity, which, when effectively utilized, could facilitate enhanced societal transformation. Dr. Gbollie is a passionate youth and student leader, educator, corporate consultant, lecturer, and motivational speaker. Dr. Gbollie addresses critical issues related to human, social, and educational development of all individuals, especially young people. He's a strong campaigner and promoter of better youth today, much better world tomorrow. Dr. Gbollie is the author of 2 motivational books, A Youthful Champion and A Champion's Thought, as well as numerous research and newspaper publications. Charles has trained, mentored, and coached hundreds of people, especially youth in Liberia and abroad, to overcome tough times and maximize their full potential. Welcome, let's overcome and win a war against tough times. Forward. The timing of this book by Dr. Gbollie and Decelia Chesson-Wureh, 2 inspirational and brilliant young Liberians, is remarkable. Because at this very moment, humanity is confronted with a ferocious and deadly foe. It's the most advanced evolutionary competent pathogen we are yet to see. Since its discovery in 1976 to current, in 44 years, Ebola has infected about 37,000 people and killed 50% of its victims. COVID-19, on the other hand, has the following horrifying statistics globally, and Liberia in particular. As of August 6, 2020, 216 countries worldwide have been affected with 10,533,779 cases in 7 months. The alarming rate of transmissions and infections is worrisome. For instance, in 24 hours of August 5, 2020, there were 176,102 new cases. Unlike Ebola, that has killed around 16,000 people in 44 years, COVID-19 has killed over 500,000 people in 7 months of its existence. Cases are on an increase in Liberia and the entire West African sub-region. As of August 6, 2020, Liberia has reported 1,224 cases with 79 deaths. The COVID-19 pandemic has threatened to bring the global economy on its knees, while it has completely smashed the airline industry. Besides, the education of our children is now threatened because of the risks of increased infections in schools. The future currently looks bleak, with no new permanent solution in sight. Realistically speaking, the world seems baffled about the situation. Notwithstanding, we are seeking practical solutions to end this nightmare, even though the pursuit is far from reality. So far, everywhere we look for, the answers seem to be too distant and unattainable. Let me give some illustrations of the sense of despair from those the world looks to for answers to previous infectious diseases. The hard reality is that this is not even close to being over. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Director General of the WHO, said the worst is yet to come. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the world's renowned infectious disease doctor, who led the successful fight against HIV and AIDS, SARS, and influenza, has also expressed shock and dismay over the coronavirus. Ebola is far deadlier, but not nearly as transmissible, and HIV has been far more lethal, killing 37 million people since the 1980s, but has taken decades to cause such devastation. SARS-CoV-2 has swept in much more rapidly. In a period of 4 months, it has devastated the world, amid 110,000 deaths in the United States. Deaths and millions of infections worldwide, and it isn't over yet. In spite of this very bleak prospect, I strongly believe in the resilience of the human spirit in general, and the Liberian spirit in particular. This assurance of the ability of Liberians and the world as a whole to rise above previous hardships and calamities like HIV and AIDS pandemic and the Ebola epidemics is what these brilliant authors are rekindling in all of us. This was clearly re-emphasized by Bill Gates with these words: "I believe that humanity will beat this pandemic, but only when most of the population is vaccinated." In this book entitled The Golden Science of Tough Times, COVID-19, Pathways to Overcoming, Thriving and Remaining Positive and Resilient When All Hell Breaks Loose, Charles and Decelia give us the fundamental principles that will empower each of us to beat our challenge in this life. They utilize their rich experiences and other empirical evidence to help us respond, embrace, and navigate through tough times by unveiling proven ways and practical positive actions. This book also provides notable lessons of the pandemic to help you find hidden opportunities in adversity, which when effectively utilized will facilitate enhanced societal transformation. Remember, in the midst of this dark cloud of the COVID-19, there's a silver lining of inspiration that you can soar as an eagle with your dreams. This is because experience has shown that many entrepreneurs around the developed world, including Jack Ma, founder of Alibaba Group, Mark Zuckerberg, Chief Executive Officer of Facebook, and others have amassed billions of dollars to their wealth by leveraging tough times to their best advantage. Yes, you have the capacity to overcome anything that life throws at you, even in the midst of the COVID-19. By reading this book and applying its principles to your life and dreams, you'll be a step closer to overcoming, thriving, and remaining positive and resilient in tough times. I recommend that you give this book keen consideration because the two young authors have elevated the fight against tough times to another level by identifying and looking at the golden science aimed at providing an antidote to anxiety, fear, panic, frustration, anger, depression, and despair. Since positive thoughts facilitate healing, resilience, and maximum positive impact, this book seeks to empower readers to avoid denial, resisting frustration, anger, fear, and complaints. Providing the scientific and spiritual pathways to dealing with a crisis is critical because it's much easier for everything to be perceived negatively. This will enable you to experience positivity, resilience, and progression in order to leverage world circumstances to your benefit. The Creator is with us in this, and we shall definitely overcome and get the next level in our journey. In these times when positive mindset and resilience are highly needed, I challenge you to remain hopeful, positive, and relentless. I'm confident that you will find this material useful in this regard. Meanwhile, don't forget to prevent yourself from COVID-19 and stay safe. The future is bright. This is by Dr. Mosoka P. Fowler, Head of National Public Health Institute of Liberia. Preface. When the novel coronavirus disease COVID-19 began to strike the world from one country to the next, did you know humans' greatest challenge? Fear. Many fear contracting a deadly virus and losing their lives. Many fear being laid off by their employers, thus rendering them without food and shelter. Many fear losing their talents and businesses. Many fear the loneliness of the lockdown and being distant from the public space and the like. With fear also came huge panic, which activated a negative meta-attitude of undesirable what-ifs. I remember as cases of the virus started to increase in Liberia and rumors of a total lockdown and state of emergency slammed the air. Panic gripped many. The unverified news prompted hundreds, including me, to rush to the markets and supermarkets in order to procure any foods and all kinds of household necessities our hands could lay on. I remember buying bags of rice and sharing them on some people in preparation and anticipation. I also stocked my refrigerator with needed items as if the announcement of a lockdown was already made. Meanwhile, before the close of the day, a circular was released by the Government Information Ministry that the President was going to address the nation by 12 o'clock noon the following day. It became much obvious that the country was certainly going to be locked down as part of efforts to fight and contain the raging COVID-19. As rumored, a lockdown and a state of emergency were declared, which were expected to come into effect in 48 hours. It was not quite strange because Liberia's neighboring countries had already kicked off theirs. This announcement reinvigorated panic buying. I remember spending a full day doing so with the family in order to get prepared for the restricted movement. As I drove home after all the preparations on the day before the pronouncement took effect, I began to wonder. I couldn't get over what was happening. It was not because of the preparations. It is great to prepare ahead of time, especially before emergencies. But it all boils down to fear, anxiety, and panic I was experiencing. As an educational psychologist and a motivational speaker, I've been encouraging hundreds of friends and followers on my social media platforms, particularly in the epicenter, Wuhan City in China, where I have spent 5 years pursuing graduate and postgraduate education to be fearless and panic-free. I just left from there several months before the outbreak. Here am I physically in their shoes. As my wandering took me through the night, I began asking many questions. What happens to the average person who has been demotivated and uninspired about life under normal circumstances? If I can feel some anxiety and fear in spite of my huge motivation, how would it be feeling amidst this situation? What about the average person who has got no savings and I cannot afford to prepare for the lockdown? What? I kept on asking. As I thought about those questions, I was even more baffled when the thoughts about statistics of the millions of people who are confronted with anxiety, fear, and depression in the world came to mind. For instance, the WHO reports that 322 million people were depressed, while 264 million others were anxious as of 2015, with 1.85 billion or 36% of the world's population living in extreme poverty, meaning they live on $1.25 a day. And with such a pandemic, I could not help it, but became very saddened. What happens in a normal situation like the COVID-19 pandemic? I pondered. As I struggled to catch sleep and wrestle in my warm bed, already in the morning of my first day of lockdown, suddenly I regained my courage and became motivated again. The zeal to do something positive about the circumstances at hand came over me. What can I do to help eliminate fear and panic amidst this invisible enemy, COVID-19? I asked myself a fundamental question. In pursuit, the quest for the answers began to unravel. The first step was to begin searching for answers in every literature I could lay my hands on. From the best book ever written, the Bible, to determine what the Creator says about adversities or trying times and the ultimate means of overcoming them, to the law of attraction, which summarily suggests that we are a living magnet. The answers were sought from Dr. Miles Monroe's perspective on overcoming crisis and benefits of change, to Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and Simon Stone's Success Through Positive Thought, among many other resources, were read and critically analyzed to derive solutions to respond to the pandemic. Indeed, my search was enriching and rewarding. I didn't stop there. I also looked within to draw out what has helped me the most to overcome my greatest difficult moments in life. My most crucial mind-changing and life-transforming adversity, which happened in 2014, came in the picture. It happened 3 days after I was awarded a master's degree in development and educational psychology as an international excellence student in China. It revolutionized my life because it was not only a challenge to my profession, part of which focuses on the human mind and mental processes, but a test to my mind itself. My thought has been programmed that my stepmother, who predated my birth, loved and nurture me was the main reason I was alive, a major source of my strength. I will have to deal with this deep thought and the reality of her untimely passing. I overcame this life-threatening adversity through one word, thought. As part of this experience, I was pushed in 2019 to publish 2 books. One of them, The Champion's Thought, intended to redefine and refine readers' mental faculties in order to maximize their full potential in the world. The book concluded that our thoughts have the ability to heal or destroy, make or break us. Besides, I contacted my coordinator for one of my motivational groups, Yukan, based in China, informing her about my conviction and pleaded with her to join. Decelia, my astute co-author, also a motivational speaker, was thrilled and honored to come on board with her youthful face. I told her what the task entailed and launched immediately. In no time, answers began to filter in. Drawing from wealth of resources and our personal experiences, the core discovery was that there are only 2 sides and approaches to dealing with any perilous situations. The 2 sides are negative and positive, while the 2 approaches are reaction and response. That's all. It's just like a coin, 2 sides only. We both decided to choose one side as a panacea to dealing with anxiety, fear, and final COVID-19. We call it the golden sides of tough times, COVID-19. Yes, the golden sides of tough times, COVID-19. This book contains every answer we could find, which has helped us and many others to overcome adversities. Congratulations, you have the pathways to overcoming, thriving, and remaining positive and resilient in tough times. There's a useful material to help you and anyone who reads it to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and other challenging situations by looking at the golden positive sides. You can be rest assured that as the children of Israel in the times of old were asked to look at the pole to get healed from venomous snake bites, you will overcome and remain positive and resilient and make good use of what seems to be a bad situation to maximize your potential and achieve greater success. By doing this, you will definitely cure your fear, anxiety, and depression, which are as dangerous as the virus itself. And unfortunately, many have fallen victim because of them and not the virus. Use this book as an antidote to your fear. Use it to give you hope. Remember, adversity is the incubator of innovation and creativity. You are strong enough to graduate from any recession to progression and from backwardness to forwardness. You are not in this alone. Everyone on planet Earth is in it, no matter their riches, brilliance, knowledge, and any kind of precious possessions. We all face 2 permanent happenings in the world, opportunity and adversity. No exemption. But remember, much of human growth and development takes place during unsettled times. Because of the existence of adversities, it's a matter of must that we step out of our comfort zones and keep moving. Of course, you can choose to stay there, but the price is definitely huge. You won't like its outcome at all. It's not a matter of denial, rather acceptance. It's about taking appropriate steps to understand the situation and promoting the betterment of yourself and others. That is why we have placed before you the golden signs so that you can touch and feel the goals and become stunning. Our pieces of advice to you up front are: avoid denial, resent frustration and anger, fear not, and never complain. Choose to respond rather than react. As Miles Monroe puts it, if you react, you are a victim. If you respond, you are a victor. Choose to be a victor of COVID-19. Finally, remember that God, through Moses, said, "I will do to you all things I hear you say." This is an unbreakable promise. Do not allow your words to trap you. Whatever you say or see, become your self-fulfilling prophecy. If you are ready for the golden signs of tough times COVID-19, becoming more positive and resilient, and conquering the pandemic, then the heavens are on your side. Welcome, let's overcome, safeguard ourselves, our families, communities, countries, and the world as a whole. Let's win the war against tough times. Introduction. A Native American grandfather was talking to his grandson about how he felt. He said, "I feel as if I have 2 wolves fighting in my heart. One wolf is vengeful violent one. The other wolf is the loving, compassionate one. The grandson asking, which wolf will win the fight in your heart? The grandfather answer, the one I feed. Black Hawk. Everything has changed. Whether we like it or not, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed it. Quite certainly and surprisingly, our greatest cities and even small ones, full of activities and excitements for the first time in decades, became empty and deserted. You could not easily venture to seek refuge in New York, Paris, Rome, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Cairo, Monrovia, or any other city of your choice. At least for a moment, the best and safest places are our homes, indoors as outdoor experiences, the greatest quietude ever. The society means of worship in churches and mosques, and assemblies in the liveliest conference halls and classrooms of learning institutions were all being suspended. Our renowned events and sports, especially football, pageantries, fashion shows, wedding ceremonies, parties, and all kinds of festivities were far from the doorsteps of mankind. The most important concern has not been the airlines, cars, luxuries, power, or possessions. Most of them are packed. Only one thing is more essential: preservation of life. What a sudden change! You must change along with it. This is because when a tragic situation comes and goes, this lesson and changes do not go along with it. This is the best option through the crisis and remain deeply rooted in the game of life. In other words, when the battle over COVID-19 is won and any other further pandemic occurs, it is crucial to embrace and navigate through change. As Charles Darwin wrote, it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. In a nutshell, our view towards everything must somehow be changed. Henceforth, our view of the world and systems, our views towards our cities, luxuries and possessions, our view towards worship services and sports, our view towards education and the economy, our view towards everything that has changed has to change now. As you take time to change your view, let us remind you that there are only two sides of a coin, the positive side and the negative side, the response side and the reaction side. Choose positive response side and live at your optimum in spite of the difficult times. Don't choose the former because it is destructive, as doing so is synonymous for becoming confused, anxious, and fearful. Obviously, you don't want those negative emotions. The price of negativity and reaction is extremely costly. It may even result in death, as many illnesses are triggered by them. You cannot overcome any challenging situation through discouraging and negative words. Certainly, negative thoughts will always bring negative impacts, while positive thoughts facilitate healing, resilience, and maximum positive impact. When the situation is bad, your thought must be good. Two negatives in the electrical circuit cannot produce current. They cannot produce a good. It has to be one positive and one negative. The situation in itself is already negative. Hence, your responsibility is to connect good to it, and things will be okay. If you choose to connect negative with negative, the result will be pumping of more blood, hypertension, depression, frustration, and anger. In other words, having negative attitude towards dreadful situations leads to taking action against the occurrence before really thinking about it or its consequences. This is the most detrimental way to handle adversity. It has potential consequences, including demise. Undoubtedly, it is somehow natural to experience anxiety, fear, and panic of some sort, whether you are a king, president, prime minister, legislator, business executive, pastor, imam, teacher, student, health practitioner, psychologist, employer, and the rest, broke or rich. There's no exception. This is because the pandemic does not discriminate. It is natural for wrong things to happen to us, but it's unnatural to permit them to overwhelm us. Note that the greatest and most appropriate response to global disaster is self-action, self-response. Every other external action is secondary. You might ask, what is it in this for me, or what can I learn from this adversity? Considering that anxiety, fear, and panic are as dangerous as the pandemic itself, it is improper to settle there. If you do, you are at high risk not only from the adversity at hand, but also at the mercy of the consequences of fear poses to humanity. You have got to feed the right wolf in order to win the fight, as Black Horse imply. If you are not sure which one to feed during the COVID-19 pandemic and future challenges situations, and what to feed them on, then we have good news for you. You have in your hands the antidote to dealing with such situations, encompassing fear and panic. In this book entitled The Golden Science of Tough Times, COVID-19, Pathways to Overcoming, Thriving and Remaining Positive and Resilient When All Hell Breaks Loose, is a well-researched and experienced, rich, life-changing book designed to help you respond to COVID-19 pandemic and any other challenging situation you may be confronted with by looking at the golden and positive sides. It's a panacea to dealing with anxiety, fear, and panic. With you is every answer we could find, which shall help us and many others, from the days of old till now, to overcome adversities. It is tailored toward helping you to respond rather than react to COVID-19 by unveiling proven ways and practical positive actions to prevent yourself, family, country, and the world from a disaster. Through this, you'll be yielding to Elvis Presley's progressive advice: when things go wrong, do not go with them. As a soldier needs a weapon to move conveniently for a battle, so is this book to you. It's a good sword to help you to better respond with clear pathway to thriving and remaining positive and resilient in tough times. Carefully designed across various parts and chapters, you will learn how the changes brought as a result of the pandemic will revolutionize our world for the better. More importantly, we unravel hidden golden opportunities and offer practical suggestions and strategies to help you harness them and remain positive and resilient in the midst of the pandemic, as well as demonstrate maturity and readjustment capacity in chaotic times. In essence, this book will afford you the opportunity not only to enjoy the journey, but to learn real means of turning worst situations to your best advantage. Come with us, let's show you the golden sides, the opportunity in such tough times as this. A snapshot of what you will get from this book. 1. Help you to positively respond instead of react to the COVID-19 pandemic and other tough times. 2. Nurture a culture of thriving, positive mental attitude and resilience to maximize your full potential. 3. Empower you to use the pandemic to your advantage, to see and exploit opportunities in the adversities. 4. Develop a skill to convert bad situation to a good one. 5. Help you to demonstrate maturity in chaotic times. 6. Help you remove any frustration and anger which may result in bitterness, hate, accusation, and destructive attitudes towards others. 7. Better understand yourself, the world systems, and the Creator. 8. Prepare you to engage the future with boldness and productivity. 9. Create lasting progressive memories and suggest appropriate ways to forge ahead for a better future through lessons of COVID-19. And 10. Contribute to a better person, better world revolution.
Uncertainty, no security, everything is possible. It could be your mama, your papa, brother and sister. Let's stand together to fight this deadly disease now.
Chapter 1. The COVID-19 Episode and Emergent Change. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Nelson Mandela, ex-South African president and Nobel Peace Prize winner. This chapter focuses on the emergence of the novel coronavirus disease, COVID-19. It assesses the city's philosophy and how it became a self-fulfilling prophecy to the changing world. In other words, it looks at COVID-19 and the fulfilled prophecy and how it is the beginning of a great impending change. Besides, it looks at the process of understanding the disease. including symptoms and transmission, and preliminary actions to contain it. The chapter concludes with the provision of the antidote for individualized action towards surviving the pandemic. The overall objective of this chapter is to dissect the origin of COVID-19 and means of its triumph. No doubt, this chapter will put you on the road to overcoming, thriving and remaining positive and resilient in tough times. COVID-19 and fulfilled prophecy. From childhood, I had always dreamed of exploring the world. I had dreamed of studying abroad in a diverse environment and experience others' culture and perhaps language. But having been born in a remote village and from impoverished family, this was more or less a fantasy rather than real dream. But it seems when you dream with feeling and commitment, the universe will work out miracles on your behalf to fulfill your dreams. Never be afraid to dream big. Like a 17-year-old Hebrew slave, Joseph, whose dream became a reality 13 years later, mine too was. How did it happen? It's a long story though. Nevertheless, I will just hit it on the top. Having completed my undergraduate degree, I competed for the governments of Liberia and China bilateral scholarships. It was a tough competition. Dozens of other young and brilliant Liberians like myself have applied. Only 18 slots were available. Each person had to prove beyond all reasonable doubts of being a scholar to be accepted. After going through vigorous process, including aptitude tests and interviews, I made it among the fortunate 18. On August 20, 2012, we took off. My dream of acquiring quality graduate education abroad landed me in the Chinese central city of Wuhan. Yes, it's Wuhan. You don't want to ask me, is it the Wuhan that has been in the news for the emergence of COVID-19? Don't you? Yes, it is the Wuhan. That's it. This beautiful and progressive developing city was my home for 5 years. Though not consecutively, I had pursued my master's and PhD in one of its top universities between 2012 to 2014 and 2016 to 2019 respectively. Frankly speaking, life in Wuhan was a very magnificent one. Wuhan is strategically located in the central part of China and is considered the transportation and education hubs of the populous Chinese nation. Wuhan, the capital of Hubei province, is host to over 11 million people of all nationalities, and the city plays host to historic places and sites, including Yangtze River, East Lake, and beautiful parks and museums. Exploring these sceneries and experimenting the varieties of Chinese foods, language and culture, and interacting with people from all nationalities and learning in a top-notch university were the best things that ever happened to me. They were a dream come true. My life was transformed in this place for the better with memories I will never forget. I have visited many other Chinese cities, including Beijing, Yaowu, Nanjing, Guangzhou, among others. But to me, none of them beat the hospitality of Wuhan. I would invite you to visit Wuhan after the pandemic if you can. You won't regret it. Before going through the COVID-19 pandemic, allow me to tell you one more fact about Wuhan. By the way, I am always thrilled talking about Wuhan. Forgive my Chinese empathy. One interesting thing about Wuhan is that it is fast developing. In fact, the municipal city's 30-year plan is to make it one of the best, not just in China, but the entire world. And they talk and do, operating under a world-thought motto, Wuhan Mitian Bo Yin Yang, meaning Wuhan different every day. The city has already undertaken momentous developments and made tremendous progress in a relatively short time. Beautiful subways, gigantic infrastructures, and many more make the city's motto not just on paper, but a motto in action. Every time you leave Wuhan for a few weeks or months, you will be astonished by the dramatic change you will see when you return. Chinese cities may be fast developing, but Wuhan is an everyday changing city. I may not return to Wuhan soon, But when I do, there is one thing I am certainly sure of. There will be a tremendous change. It will be different. The message of this story is not just to introduce you to Wuhan, which is unfortunately considered as the origin and epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, as a natural phenomenon, no individual can determine where it begins. Wuhan only happened to be one, I guess. My main intent of telling you this story is to open your eyes and remind you how your philosophy and motto or that of your locality can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes, your thoughts can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, getting the reality of what you have imagined. We want to be quick to remind you that your response or reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic is definitely creating your reality. We have no doubt about this. Ever since the Creator promised to do what He hears us say, hence, be very careful about what you philosophize or say on a daily basis. Over the past decade, Wuhan has profoundly prophesied positive change in its city. Wuhan Metian Bon Yin Yang, meaning Wuhan different every day. It is a well-intentioned motto, bringing huge developments to the city, thus in some way making it a good example to the world if the vision is fully accomplished. It seems that this prophecy of change is being globalized from this city. This is just a matter of mere intuition based on coincidence. Surely, except the supernatural, no one can say with total accuracy why this extreme change that has engulfed the world originated from Wuhan. You and I cannot. It is beyond our human limits. The politics and blame game won't help either. We can only look to the skies. Our guess, and perhaps yours, might be that since the root of Wuhan's philosophy, Wuhan different every day, is development-oriented, then the COVID-19 pandemic, as despicable as it may appear to be now, will change our world for the better. We hold a strong belief that it will happen. That is the main reason why we have written this book, in order to reveal the golden sides of the situation as a panacea to thriving and remaining positive and resilient in tough times. This is extremely vital. If you are to make it during this crisis, if you are to persevere during this crisis, if you are to overcome during this crisis, this book provides the best bet for you and your friends. It might be a natural tendency of human to shun change, but change is inevitable, and shunning it won't take it off either. The pursuit to explore the golden sides of tough times, COVID-19, is in no way an act of insensitivity to the fact that thousands have not already lost their lives. Thousands are not at risk of losing their lives. Several millions have not been hospitalized. Systems and economies have not collapsed. Movements and social activities have not been restricted. Most outdoor activities were not suspended, and many more. We are in total sympathy, and we are not excluded. In fact, we wrote this book while observing our lockdown in Liberia and China, respectively. It is purely meant to support the fight and assist you to have a better perspective of the situation. It is purely in support of what the head of the fight, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Director General of the World Health Organization, WHO, said, "Let hope be the antidote to fear." It is purely meant to help get you off the fear and thrive in spite of the tough times. In the meanwhile, we deeply sympathize, particularly with victims and their families, and invoke comfort from God Almighty. Everyone is feeling the burns of the situation, but as best of species ever created with potential to overcome all challenges that befall mankind, we cannot afford to fold our hands, sit and cry. We can't. You can't. We must do something positive to upset the situation and convert it to our advantage. As Chinese Confucius wrote, the germ cannot be polished without friction, nor man perfected without trials. Our shared responsibility is to respond to the pandemic, and we will be perfected, as Confucius alluded. Again, We are confident that since Wuhan's philosophy is development-oriented, Wuhan different every day, then the COVID-19 pandemic, as despicable as it may appear to be now, will change our world for the better. Hold fast to this belief. Yield to Duke Ellington's advice. A problem is a chance for you to do your best. It is time for you to do your best to achieve the best results for yourself and others. It may appear like the world is in a pit right now, but it is only temporary. Deliverance and healing are underway. Expect them and you shall get them. There is always light at the end of a tunnel. Watch out. The end of the tunnel will soon unfold. As Joseph was picked from the pit and placed on a caravan to Egypt, where he became prime minister and fulfilled his dreams, this situation would take you to another level if you let it. COVID-19, the beginning of a great change. It is only 20 years in the 21st century, and greatest change in all things is already unfolding. The interesting thing is that no one saw it coming. No one anticipated it at all, at least not in the way it started unfolding. When 2020 was setting in, greeted by celebrations and gratitude, no one expected that systems, structures, culture of living, ways of doing business, acquiring education, worship and host of other events our cherished world has long enjoyed would have changed this quickly. It was only at the close of 2019, December 31st, when the WHO China country office was hinted about it. A pneumonia of unknown cause has been detected in the city of Wuhan in Hubei province, China. According to the authorities, some patients were operating dealers or vendors in the Wuhan seafood market. The WHO declared, with warning signs and the message of be ready, be smart, and be kind. The World Health leader asked people of all walks of life to join the fight as it closely keeps in contact with national authorities and begins monitoring the situation. But it seems the early warning was not early enough, because change is secretive and likes to operate unannounced. Its seed of change has already been sowed in the city that changes every day. As suspicious as change is, when it is beginning, nobody understands it. It takes some explorative study and valuable time to detect or counter it. And being initiated in the form of a virus makes it even more complex to deal with. Health practitioners and scientists would have to go to work and begin studying it. Meanwhile, the chain of transmission and its crack or lives remains unabated. So, it is with change. We must accept it. We live in a world dominated by the power of nature, the supreme leader of the universe. It is the initiator of change, and it has placed one at our doorstep. As Jim Rohn, a success coach, once said, if you read the history of the past centuries and the ones ahead, they will be summed into opportunities mixed with difficulties. We cannot agree with Jim enough. He's right. Perhaps this is the fundamental principle and structure in creation. Just yesterday we learned that we live in a more opportune and progressive world with great potential at various levels than our forefathers did. We have celebrated globalization, advancement in information, better communication, cultural diversification, and the ability to network with others. We have also hailed favorable life expectancy and rapid transformation across the world. The case of these opportunities sometimes makes one to forget the side of opportunities. That's right, because naturally we are on the side of goodness. We are inclined to goodness. However, we must not forget that as long as man lives in the universe, there will be opportunities mixed with difficulties. This is non-negotiable. Possibly, this is the reason why the greatest teacher and Savior, Jesus Christ, in John 16:33 asserted, here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart, because I have overcome the world. The understanding and acceptance of this promise is pivotal to changing your life for the better. First, you will realize that adversity is real. Everyone faces it, but this is not the most important part of the message we would love for you to take home. The message is, it has been overcome. Your problems, trials, and sorrows have been overcome. Won't you feel much better if you believe that everything is overcome and under complete control? We believe you would. The truth has been placed before you. Indeed, adversity is real, but the possibility of overcoming is much more real. Millions have done so. We are sure if you overcome, something marvelous is waiting for you. There may not be earthly cure for COVID-19 as yet, but if you take the promise of being an overcomer, you had halfway overcome it. The other half requires the exercise of faith by putting your belief to work. This means observation of the preventive measures and utilizing them to the best of your abilities. In short, we need to use the discovered facts of the pandemic in order to obtain the remaining half. Brief synopsis of known facts of COVID-19. As you may be aware by now, the focus of this book is not to dive deep into the origin, symptoms, causes, transmission, risk factors, and treatments of COVID-19. The WHO, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, an array of health experts and institutions are doing a marvelous job in this regard. And definitely, we guess that you have sufficient information and only in dire need of the golden sides, how you make use of the worst situation to your best advantage. This is a brilliant idea because life has no pause button. Life is always passing by, no matter the circumstances. In other words, if you are meant to achieve some marvelous things this year, or you are given a certain amount of time to be in the universe, additional months or years won't be added because of the emergence of the pandemic. Obviously, you won't give that as an excuse. As glittering as it may look, it is still an excuse. Nothing more, nothing less. And there are no stores where excuses are traded for a worthy cost. No. Going further, permit us to highlight some information about COVID-19, a very brief synopsis. Causes, symptoms, and warning signs. Health experts emphasized that coronavirus are zoonotic, which means they are transferred from animals to humans. An article by Tim Jewell, published by Healthline, pointed out that for the virus to pass from animal to humans, a person has to come in close contact with an animal that carries the infection. Tim hinted that coronavirus gets its name from the way it looks under a microscope. Corona means crown, and when examined closely, the round virus has a crown of proteins called peplomas jutting out from its center in every direction, Tim explained. Once the virus develops in people, it can be spread from person to person through respiratory droplets. The viral material hangs out in these droplets and can be breathed into the respiratory tract, your windpipe lungs, where the virus can then lead to an infection. Researchers believe that the virus may have been passed from bats to animals, either snakes or pangolins, and then transmitted to humans. This transmission likely occurred in the open food market in Wuhan. According to CDC and WHO, individuals with COVID-19 have had a wide range of symptoms, ranging from mild symptoms to severe illness, which may appear 2 to 14 days after exposure to the virus. They include fever, cough, shortness of breath, or difficulty in breathing, chills, repeated shaking with chills, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, loss of taste or smell. The CDC and WHO also uncovered emergency warning signs for COVID-19 to inform immediate medical attention. They are trouble breathing, persistent pain or pressure in the chest, new confusion or inability to arouse, blush lips or face, treatment and prevention. One challenging reality of the pandemic is the absence of cure. Only moderate management of symptoms, and when the heavens are on your side, you survive. Treatments and vaccines development are currently under study. It is our fervent prayers that there will be breakthrough soon. In the meantime, the survival rate is considerable. That is one good thing about the virus. However, prevention, years in, years out, has always been better than cure. Prevent yourself and your family, as cure is not a good option at all. CDC and WHO believe that the best way to prevent the illness is to avoid being exposed to this virus. Other key measures as validated by CDC are as follow. Clean your hands often. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, especially after you have been in a public place or after blowing your nose, coughing, or sneezing. If soap and water are not readily available, use a hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol. Cover all surfaces of your hands and rub them together until they feel dry. Avoid touching your face, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. Avoid close contact. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Stay home as much as possible. Put distance between yourself and other people. Remember that some people without symptoms may be able to spread the virus. Keeping distance from others is especially important for people who are at higher risks of getting very sick. Cover your mouth and nose with a cloth face cover when around others. You could spread COVID-19 to others even if you do not feel sick. Everyone should wear a cloth face cover when they have to go out in public. Cloth face coverings should not be placed on young children under age 2. Anyone who has trouble breathing or is unconscious, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to remove the mask without assistance. Do not use a face mask meant for a healthcare worker. Cover coughs and sneezes. If you are in a private setting and do not have on your cloth face covering, remember to always cover your mouth and nose with a tissue when you cough or sneeze, or use the inside of your elbow. Throw used tissues in the trash. Immediately wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not readily available, clean your hands with a hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol. Clean and disinfect. Clean and disinfect frequently. Touch surfaces daily. This includes tables, doorknobs, light switches, countertops, handles, desk, phones, keyboards, toilets, faucets, and sinks. If surfaces are dirty, clean them. Use detergent or soap and water prior to disinfection. Then, use a household disinfectant. Most common EPA-registered household disinfectant will work. Thanks to the CDC and other health authorities for leading us through this fight. It is binding upon us to pay keen attention to the preventive measures and stay safe as offered by them and other local authorities. As intimated earlier, the application of those measures is taking you to the other half of overcoming this unprecedented pandemic. It is the true application of faith. Besides, there are greater benefits of the measures going forward. No doubt, after the pandemic, those measures which would have been developed into habits would be of great benefit to your health and others. How? Health practitioners have observed that bulk of the spread of other sicknesses are as a result of our connections or close interactions. That's why we hinted that opportunities are always within difficulties if you consciously look for them. Look and you will find them. They are staring at you, even in the current observation of measures. They have potential benefits. Intuitively, the statistics of infectious STDs, HIV, and communicable diseases would reduce as we continue observing those measures, including social distancing. Stay safe and keep observing them as the virus is spreading like wildfire, looking for who to devour. In the next heading, we looked at this further. Coronavirus tsunami. Albert Einstein once wrote, "When you are going through hell, keep going." We think this is one of the best advice you can get, at least for the moment. Keep moving. There is heaven at the other end. Though COVID-19 is one of the worst pandemics ever and a threat to every member of the human race, poor or rich, young or old, it has no permanent power because nothing lasts forever on earth. It is only a matter of time. From all indications, COVID-19 has created a tsunamic situation for the world. There is nothing to sugarcoat about it. This is an impending reality, and this book does not dispute it at all. Even though the greater emphasis is placed on what we can do to overcome, thrive, and maximize the use of our precious lives, as well as what we can learn from it to strive to the next levels of life. Indeed, from one country to the next, the disease has been spreading its tentacles like wildfire, looking for whom to victimize. But the power that exists in the universe is more powerful than this virus, 1 trillion times more powerful. Since the first 2 weeks of the first reported case, the virus left the borders and traveled the world over, from China to Thailand, from Thailand to other parts of Asia, then Europe, America, and Africa. COVID-19 spread its tentacles like rampaging, consuming fire. Here is a summary timeline as recorded by Business Insider USA 4. January 11, first death recorded in China. January 13, first novel coronavirus outside of China confirmed involving 61-year-old female tourist. January 20, first U.S. case reported, a 35-year-old. January 23, 11 million city Wuhan placed under quarantine. January 20, WHO declared the virus a public health emergency of international concern. January 31, President Trump banned foreign nationals from entering the U.S. if they have been in China 2 weeks prior. February 11, WHO announced that the disease caused by the new coronavirus will be called COVID-19. February 12, 19 cases began to spike in South Korea. February 14, a Chinese tourist who tested positive for the virus died in France, becoming Europe's first death. February 19, outbreak began in Iran. February 21, number of cases spiked in Italy with 41,000 cases and hundreds of deaths. February 29, the U.S. confirmed its first death on American soil, with all states declaring state of emergency by March 19. March 9, Italy placed all 60 million of its residents on lockdown. March 11, WHO declared the outbreak a pandemic. The snapshot of some of the timeline shows how COVID-19 is traveling the world over and raging hell. As of July 28, 2020, the World Meter Database reported that 16.6 million cases have been recorded with 657,454 deaths, though 10.27 million people have recovered from the disease globally. What a tragedy. As we look to the skies for quick and timely deliverance, it is our ardent hope that this pandemic will be history sooner than later for us and you too. This could have ended yesterday. Nonetheless, this is yet a dream. The situation instead calls on every individual to put his or her hand on the plow to end COVID-19 in the world. We want to encourage you to look within. Find your human spirit and power. Use it to confront and battle this emergent test to humanity. One of our intentions is to encourage readers of this book to remain positive and resilient, to encourage you not to lose hope. Remember, once you are still breathing, you can do something about it. Whatever you can do, do it. Whether it is observing the preventive measures as suggested, including staying and working at home, unless there is really a need. It will save your life and the lives of others. Frontline fighters, including those who, with huge responsibility, promote early detection, isolation, and treating cases, contact tracing and social distancing measures in order to interrupt the continuous spread of the virus. This too shall come to pass. In an article dated April 2, 2018, Life Sciences contributor Stephanie Pappas discussed 11 top deadliest natural disasters in history, from the 1138 Aleppo earthquake when the ground under the Syrian city began to shake, resulting to the city's citadel collapsed and houses crumble across Aleppo, with estimated 230,000 lives lost, to the 2010 Haiti quake with loss of 316,000 lives. The earth has experienced disastrous incidents. Stephanie also recalled one of the worst floods in history, the 1887 Yellow River flood, with the estimated death toll of 900,000, and many other incidents, whether man-made, such as World Wars I and II, the 1930s, Great Depression, among others, have unfolded and went down in history. Most striking and alarming are even the statistics of millions of lives that have been lost as a result of viruses. The coronavirus is even far from some of them, and our prayer is that it does not come even a bit close to some of them. The intent here is to only enlighten you and allay your fear about COVID-19. It is easier to think that the current pandemic, though one of the worst, is the worst. We thought so too. But let's take a look at the summary facts in Table 1 and see, as reported by Life Sciences. Table 1. Some deadliest viruses on Earth. Virus. First year outbreak, estimated death. Marburg virus, 1967, unknown. Rabies, 1920s, unknown. Ebola, 1976, unknown. Influenza, 1918, 50 million deaths. Smallpox, 20th century, 300 million deaths. HIV, 1980s, 32 million deaths. Rotavirus, 2008, 453,000 children deaths. SARS-CoV, 2002, 770 deaths. Whether it is HIV, influenza, or smallpox, viruses have taken a big chunk of the human lives. Smallpox was something that had a huge burden on the planet, not just death, but also blindness, and that's what spoiled the campaign to eradicate it from the earth, Dr. Amish Adaja asserted. But where is it now? Is it gone? So why worry? This too shall go. Though COVID-19 is the worst in the 21st century, which has gone only 2 decades, we must not be fearful and lose hope, because this too will be history. If other viruses, including smallpox and influenza, can be eradicated, sooner than later, the coronavirus will step aside. Do you remember the conclusion of Jim Rohn and the assertion and promise of Jesus? Jim said past and present will be about opportunities mixed up with difficulties, while Jesus indicated that here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart, because he has overcome the world. Never lose track of these realities, but most importantly, never lose track of the promise. COVID-19 is not your portion, neither your family and friends. You have overcome. After the Wall Street crash of 1929, John D. Rockefeller, considered America's business magnate, philanthropist, and wealthiest American of all time and richest man in the modern history, intimated, "These are days when many are discouraged. In the 93 years of my life, depressions have come and gone. Prosperity has always returned and will again." John is right. There is a tendency to be discouraged, but like the depressions, this too has come and it will go. Let hope be the antidote to fear. Let solidarity be the antidote to blame. Let our shared humanity be the antidote to our shared threat, said Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, WHO Director General. Note that it is the challenges, as someone asserted, that make life interesting and overcoming, then is what makes life meaningful. Already, the world is united in the fight. Our God-given abilities are being championed towards a singular purpose, defeating COVID-19. And we have the Creator's blessing. He has promised that whatever we bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Together, we bind COVID-19 and walk free. As Jesus declared, John 11:4, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. So shall it be with this coronavirus sickness. Shout a louder amen if you believe. Amen. In view of your faith, we would like to give you one more advice before concluding this chapter.
First panacea: don't complain. There is nothing holding people back more in their daily activities, relationships, and quest for success than complaints. Your faith of being an overcomer becomes somehow questionable in the midst of complaints. Many have been abandoned and rejected because of complaints. Many have lost their jobs and relationships because of complaints. Many have experienced a bleak future and even lost their lives because of complaints. Yes, that's how deadly complaints are. The irony, however, is none of us likes to be complained about, but we often choose the path of complaints and destructive criticisms. Don't be a part of it. There is nowhere we've read more about complaints than in the Bible. Who were at the center? Well, for now, let's take the children of Israel. They were in captivity for 430 years, and God decided to redeem and take them to a land with milk and honey. But in the process of getting there, in spite of unimaginable miracles in their favor, they became traders in complaints. And one bad thing about a complaint is that it makes you to forget the good totally. Going back to the children of Israel, they kept complaining to the extent that God said through Moses in Numbers, I will do to you all the things I hear you say. Eventually, their entire generation, except Joshua and Caleb, could not make it to the promised land. What a tragedy. You might be failing on your dreams or finding this fight difficult because of all kinds of complaints. One thing we should do each day is to tell ourselves, don't complain, don't complain. You may say, what should I do then? Do something about it. As simple as that. Do something about it. There is nothing you cannot do something about. Decide today to take complaints out of your operations and see how much is possible without them. We have realized that complaints are not problem solvers, but problem creators. Count them out of your life and invite the heavens on your side as we fight to defeat COVID-19. Indeed, COVID-19 has exposed our world a great deal, but this is going to turn out for our good.
We are Project Liberia, Mama Liberia. Must all rise. Let's stand together to fight Corona.
In Chapter 2, we look at this aspect in depth and possible advantages we tend to accrue for a much better world. Chapter Principles. Dreams with feeling and commitment always invite the universe to work out miracles on your behalf to fulfill your dreams. Dream big. Your philosophy and motto or that of your locality can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Hence, your response or reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic is definitely creating your reality because the Creator has promised to do what He hears you say. Change is inevitable. Shunning it won't take it off anyway. As the best of species ever created with potential to overcome all challenges that befall mankind, we cannot afford to fold our hands, sit and cry. Change is secretive and likes to operate unannounced, and when it is beginning, nobody understands it. It takes some explorative study and valuable time to detect or counter it. Man lives in a universe of opportunities mixed with difficulties. Adversity is real, but the responsibility of overcoming it is much more real. There may not be earthly cure for COVID-19 as yet, but if you take the promise of being an overcomer, you have halfway overcome it. The other half requires the exercise of faith by putting your belief to work. Life has no pause button. Life is always passing by no matter the circumstances. Utilize it at all times. Prevention, years in, years out, has always been better than cure, and the best way to prevent the illness is to avoid being exposed to the virus. Nothing is permanent on earth. Nothing lasts forever at all, not even this coronavirus. Complainers are not problem solvers, but problem creators. Count them out of your life and invite the heavens on your side.
Coronavirus spreads via droplets. When the person coughs or sneezes, the droplets land on surfaces and are picked up on the hands of others and spread further. People catch the virus when they touch their infected hands to their mouth.
Chapter 2. How COVID-19 exposed the world. Mistakes, failures, and successes do not change your inborn personality and character. They only reveal who you truly are on the inside that the world has not yet known. Gbollie, educator, author, and researcher. Nothing has exposed weaknesses of systems, structures, technology, and every fabric of the society than COVID-19. From all indications, the family of man has experienced dramatic and unexpected shake-ups in all of its activities and endeavors on planet Earth. It is like the world has turned upside down. What a shock and surprise. In this chapter, we first delved into what we called change, an initiator of exposure, to analyze how the outbreak has sown the seed of change in the course of events and routines across the world. It also dissects various sectors that have been exposed, including health, economy, education, basic social services, among others. Finally, the chapter highlights that there is no safe haven on earth as a result of the exposure of human and system limitations. Change, an initiator of exposure. It was a hot summer in the Far East Asia. Where? Wuhan, China, and when? July 2014. Whether you are a geographer or not, you need not be told that this is millions of miles away from our small West African nation of Liberia, our beloved country. I've been in this place for almost 2 years pursuing my graduate degree, and it was time to return home. As I sat in my beautiful air-conditioned room of the university's dormitory, I was confronted with two heats. It was not about the summer heat. At least my room was air-cooled, except outside. It was mostly about the heat that sometimes comes with change, the change of environment, friends, rituals, and many others you can think of. I was about to face them and could feel the warmness within. This heat also comes with readjustment and getting back on one's feet. As it may appear to be a short time, every 24 months, I was reminded of the old adage, out of sight, out of mind. I believe that in most cases, this statement is true. It was not mainly concerned about much change in terms of development in Liberia, as we are not yet pursuing. Wuhan's good model, different every day. In a nutshell, I was not expecting any big change, but I was wrong. I will tell you after explaining to you the second heat I was confronted with. Hold your peace. The second and most critical heat I was confronted with was bearing, accepting, and readjusting to the sudden and untimely demise of my foster mother, beloved mother, who predicted my birth, picked, nurtured, and raised me up from childhood to adulthood. Without any clue, 3 days after my graduation with an International Excellent Student Award in China, the saddest and greatest adversity of my life came. She was knocked down by hypotension. She was rushed to the hospital and died on or before arrival. Of course, this is the genesis of the most dramatic change in my whole life. I would invite you to follow the full story in one of my books, The Youthful Champion, Keys to Achieving Lifelong Greatness. Indeed, changes always come with some heat. Most times we won't like the exposure that comes with them, though one may not like it if it is misused. They expose one's weaknesses. If one takes advantage of the hidden opportunities within, they expose one's great potentials. Going back to why I was wrong to have predicted that there wouldn't be no big change in Liberia, I felt having returned from years of civil unrest, change wouldn't show up much that didn't happen in 6 years earlier before my very eyes. Of course, we are not naive to think that not every change is a progress, but every progress comes with change, as Miles Moran would conclude. The reason I was wrong is that big change was already in full swing. Nevertheless, it was not the type of change that was anticipated, but like indicated before, change is secretive and it likes to arrive unannounced. So it was. As I returned to Liberia in the second week of July 2014 to lay my beloved mother to rest and begin readjusting to a brand new life, it was becoming obvious that a conspicuous change was at hand. The normal practices such as handshake, hugging, huge public gatherings, and even funerals were restricted. In fact, one needed to get a death certificate in order to move on with burial rituals. A strange enemy has come with this change. This enemy was Ebola. Believed to have started in Congo in 1976, the Ebola virus disease, EVD, was already beginning to victimize hundreds and infesting dozens, especially health workers in Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone. The new EVD outbreak started in Guinea in March and later spread. The government of Liberia and Africa's first democratically elected female president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, has started implementing stringent measures to curtail the spread of the deadly virus, which was already raging hell in Liberia and its neighboring countries, including Sierra Leone and Guinea. As I laid my beloved mother to rest under such circumstances, I returned to Monrovia to begin the readjustment process and move on. And I did. 2 weeks later, specifically first week in August 2014, a 90-day state of emergency was declared by the president with huge restrictions. The declaration signified a true significant change that was about to unfold. This was my first experience with huge restrictions. Work in public and private offices restricted. Only essential staff were permitted to show up. Some major investment companies either had to slow down operations or shut down. Market and worship houses somehow restricted, with each one seeing another as a potential EVD suspect. Schools closed. Learning was only meant to be done in the homes, online, or on radio. Mode of transportation restricted. Limited number of passengers expected on board. Major flights to and from Liberia stopped their operations, among others. This was not the country I left behind 2 years earlier. Indeed, a major unexpected change has been initiated by the Ebola virus. Before the Ebola started pulling things apart, in 2013, a year earlier, Liberia had triumphantly celebrated a decade of an unhindered peace and development. Of the emergence of the Ebola, it was actually a good moment to test the level and sustainability of progress made. A few weeks into the epidemic, amidst huge international support from China and the US, the true picture of what Liberia was put on display for the nation and the world to see. Put it differently, It was now time to see how strong the country was amidst billions that have been invested into the recovery drives after years of severe strife. No other incident, we would guess, could have given such a much clearer picture. Not even a top research group from Harvard, MIT, or Oxford could do so, but change exposed it to the core. After a decade of undisturbed peace and development, it was perceived by many that the country was on a right trajectory, but it seems that this was far from the reality. Let's look at the reality. Health sector, totally exposed. It was a weak system. In few weeks of the outbreak, health institutions have been overwhelmed. Very limited equipment, personal protective equipment, beds, medicines, lack of sufficient qualified doctors and nurses, and inadequate facilities became rare. Many of the health facilities shut down operations as some of their staff have come down with the virus, many losing their lives in the process. Was it only the health sector that experienced the exposure? No, not at all. The Liberian economy that has experienced some level of growth suddenly hit minus and hardships skyrocketed. In fact, it was exposed to the extent that mending the economy took the remaining half of Madam Saliv's 6 years second term of office as President of the Republic of Liberia. What about the education system? It was exposed also. Many other fabrics of the Liberian society, including infrastructure, agriculture, transport, electricity, water, among others, were no exceptions. They got their share of the exposure. They couldn't do their jobs adequately and effectively. The Ebola virus disease was not a pandemic. It was an epidemic because it was mainly in 3 countries, Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone, all members of a sub-regional body, the Minor River Union. In Liberia alone, nearly 5,000 people lost their precious lives. According to the CDC, 11,325 people lost their lives as a result of the outbreak. The form and manner the EVD exposed these 3 countries, all with small economies and weak health systems, was understandable. Those trials have been made before its emergence. It was internationally believed that these 3 countries, including Liberia, had weak health systems. It could have been unthinkable for such to happen in the U.S. As a matter of fact, an EVD case that was discovered there on September 30, 2014, was quickly crushed. 6 other countries also reported cases, but they quickly contained the virus on their soils as well. Thanks to the Creator that the EVD has left the shores of the world for good. We pray that it will never return, even though its memories and aftermath will not be forgotten easily, if they will be forgotten in any way. What happened as a consequence of the EVD to small countries, nobody would ever imagine it would have happened to the entire world. No one expects a disease in the form of a virus to shake the world and countries with vibrant and sound health systems. No one could have even dreamed about it. But again, everything is possible. A virus exposure has done it before to the weak economies and now the entire world. This is our focus in the subheading following. COVID-19 exposed the world. Suddenly, our great cities and even small ones, which were characterized by huge activities and excitements, are not as they used to be. They have been mostly deserted. The culture of globalization through travels and interactions was being placed to a halt, while even the busiest and most beautiful cities including Rome, Singapore, Amsterdam, New York, Paris, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Dubai, Cape Town, and Cllr are yet to recover and welcome their guests and tourists. Many are still doing a new thing, staying home and minding their own business. No one ever imagined this coming, not even the foreseers. Since our cities and globalization are not serving us as they used to be, it means that their limitations have been exposed. When one takes a keen look at the worship in churches and mosques, as well as seminars, conferences and classrooms of learning institutions being suspended in most localities also showed their limitation. Our renowned sports, especially football, pageantries, fashion shows, wedding ceremonies, parties, and all kinds of festivities could not serve as well in such times as we undergo this pandemic. Even our possessions have been exposed based on the fact that our main concern at this point is not about the airlines, cars, luxuries, power, or closets. Most of them have been placed on the waiting list. This equally illustrates their limitation in this race of life. In a nutshell, everything that holds the foundation of human activities and existence on earth has in one way or the other been exposed. Some of the sectors exposed have already become obvious, while others are yet to be detected by our bare eyes. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed them. Based on the extent of the exposure, we preempt that this generation would have to grapple with the exposures and changes for the first half of the 21st century. This is crucial, in that those who would ignore these changes would miss much more and are likely to be on the periphery of life in the coming months and years. Do not overlook them. This is not meant to frighten you but to keep you on your guard. It is time for you to begin adjusting yourself appropriately in order to adapt to the new future that has been created by COVID-19. As a best-selling author, speaker, and business consultant, Brian Tracy advises, resolve to be a master of change rather than a victim of change. Though the exposure of every fabric of the society cut across developed, developing, and third-world countries, the exposures and changes affect all nations. This is not to ignore the fact that the extent of the exposure is somehow based on the degree of backwardness of a particular country or continent. As the Ebola virus exposed weak health systems, economies, and every fabric of the West African countries of Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea in the few months of the outbreak in 2014, it is undoubtedly clear that countries around the globe, whether small or big, have been exposed a great deal. Let's take a deeper look at some of the sectors that have been exposed and provide some suggestions for possible enhancement. We will focus mainly on the following: health, economy, education, basic social services, social and related activities. As indicated, every fabric of the society was one way or the other touched as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. But we've opted to shed more light on the aforementioned due to their critical nature in the affairs of man. 1. Health exposure. In terms of health emergencies, the first test of vibrancy and resiliency is the health sector. Of course, this is obvious because everything about outbreak begins, rests, and ends with the health system. In the first few days or weeks, especially in terms of the rapid spreading disease, the extent to which a particular health system is equipped to handle the outbreak is known to the public. As in the case of Ebola, the weaknesses in the health systems of Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone became known overnight. What was more shocking about COVID-19 is how it exposed developed countries' health systems. It proved many people wrong about the capability and sophistication of developed countries. No one would have anticipated that the Italian health system, which is among countries with best healthcare systems in the world, could have been overwhelmed, necessitating external medical team and supplies from China to come to their rescue. No one ever expected that Spain, United Kingdom, Germany, China, Switzerland, and Sweden could have been hit as the virus did. No one could have imagined the huge death tolls they experienced. What was even more shocking and outrageous was the fact that the world's superpower, the United States of America, is one of the hardest hit with reports of shortages of equipment and medical supplies, in spite of its 21.44 trillion nominal GDP. Some medical experts hinted that the country was unprepared for the outbreak. This is unbelievable. But it is true. Many people, including authors of this book, had thought that it was impossible for that to happen. Perhaps many Americans, including President Donald Trump, did too. Our hint is informed by the delay in taking action to curb the spread of the virus in the U.S. until it was getting out of control. One upfront lesson is the overconfidence in the man-made system is dangerous and could have serious repercussions. The COVID-19 situation is a glaring example. Moving forward, we would like to provide the following suggestions as a way of remedying the current and future situations. 1. There should be well-built and equipped emergency hospitals to promote immediate response for any future outbreaks. 2. The world should consider special training of experts in handling infectious diseases of all kinds, looking beyond the extant disease. 3. The measurement of the vibrancy of the health system should go beyond its ability to handle patients under normal circumstances. 4. Countries, particularly those with small and weaker economies and health systems, should devote more efforts to improving their systems. 5. Creativity and innovation must be promoted not only in times of emergencies. People should begin to create various needs of society. Number 2. Economic exposure. Another segment that was profoundly exposed is the world economy. Economic activities have declined a great deal in the production and supply chain. This has rendered many unemployed and without resources to survive. The International Labour Organization, ILO, estimates that 25 million people could become unemployed, with a loss of workers' income as much as USD 3.4 trillion in an article published on its website. With huge reduction in work hours and closure of some institutions, the economic powers of the affected people are somehow bleak, indicating the level of vulnerability of the workplace. Further, the economic models of demand and supply and the ones that require direct local and international exchanges of goods and services have been stored in some way. Hence, the mode of production at factories is also hindered. Also come with this exposure is the fact that there is huge gap between the rich and the poor, with reports that 85% of the world's wealth is in the hands of the rich. In terms as these, the poor and laid-out workers can hardly survive without stimulus packages. It has also become a reality that many people, including the working class, have no savings, thus placing them at risk of smooth survival because they spend as they receive. And once the job is slowed, they are on their way to being penniless. This too exposes how many people are hand-to-mouth workers. This is a risk of life, to say the least. We would like to advise that no matter how small your income may be in the future, save a little for emergency time. This must be uncompromising and non-negotiable. You must save. No excuses. It must be a matter of must. Key points moving forward. 1. There is a need for living allowance for non-working class citizens across the world. 2. Compulsory saving is needed by all. 3. Innovative measures to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor are necessary to reduce the disparity through taxes and other taxations. 4. Strong financial management systems are highly recommended. 5. E-commerce and digital innovations must be prioritized, especially in developing countries. 6. Economists should pay less attention to the old models and focus on deriving novel economic models. Number 3. Education exposure. The World Bank, UNESCO, and other international bodies have been working hard over the past decades to battle the huge number of out-of-school children and youth, as well as trying to curtail what they call learning poverty. It is estimated that 258 million children and youth are out of school. Of course, the yardstick of being in school is to be under the roof of a formal school setting with school administrators and teachers' instruction, supervision, and guidance. This is the most popular model of the 21st century education system, operating mostly face-to-face in classroom model of instruction. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the limitations of this model, even more than what it did to economic ones. At least many economic institutions are still in operation, but not schools. According to UNESCO Institute for Statistics, school closures have been reported in 188 countries, displacing over 1.5 billion learners and 63 million teachers. What an educational tragedy. If the yardstick of out of school is used in this context, it means that 1.5 billion are out of school. If one incident can cause this to the education sector, then it is time for a new model of education in order to rescue the system. This will be further expatiated in a chapter later. But in the meantime, it is to the best of our knowledge that the current model of education cannot do well in terms of great public health emergencies, evidenced by the fact that most learning institutions throughout the world have shut down. Even the best universities in the world like Yale, Harvard, Cambridge, MIT, Peking University, Oxford, among others, are hampered in their operations because the model has been affected drastically. Countries with best education, including Finland, Japan, South Korea, Denmark, Norway, UK, among others, are no exceptions. This has rendered almost all the student populace fitted in such model to be in the out-of-school category. Going forward, better models encompassing enhanced e-education must be developed, tested, and rolled out. Here are a few other suggestions. 1. E-education should be prioritized. This entails better technology and internet system through massive open online courses. 2. Learning should be more self-regulated and informal. Learners should take matters into their own hands. 3. Education through podcasts and other devices should be promoted globally. 4. Home-based learning with parents' participation should be encouraged. 4. Basic social services. When the lockdown and state of emergency were about to take effect in Liberia and possibly in many other developing countries, one of the key concerns that quickly emerged was regarding unavailability of basic social services such as food, water, electricity, and internet in various homes. Without these, lockdown for days is somehow impossible. The extent to which basic necessities are absent was deeply exposed across countries, particularly in developing countries as COVID-19 escalated. Apart from the low purchasing power of the poor vulnerable populations, which remains a major challenge, even those who are in the middle class and had some resources found it difficult to purchase, store, and preserve perishable commodities like foods in their homes due to the absence of stable electricity. And being indoors without internet by many rendered them unable to communicate with their families, causing total isolation, which has negative health consequences as well. In the 21st century, it is absurd to note that many countries are lagging behind and are not even prepared for their citizenry to stay indoors for a few days without being confronted with serious life issues. This pandemic has taught us a harsh lesson, especially to our world leaders. As ex-Liberian President William R. Todbor asserted in his address to the U.S. Congress in 1976, always remember that the world is seized today in the grip of imbalances and disadvantages, immersed in malignancy. Sharp income disparity and striking social distinction exist. Human deprivation, degradation, and systemic exploitation. The Congress must be bold crusader for social and economic reform around the world. This is a wake-up call for those who have themselves on the side of backwardness to move faster in their development drives or risk more negative consequences in the future. Here are a few suggestions in this regard. 1. Special attention should be given to agriculture, food production, through mechanized farming. Modalities must be worked out to build storage facilities, especially in the developing countries and food supply networks. 2. Water, electricity, and internet must be seen as highly essential life necessities and given due attention. 3. Other measures, especially those contained under the economic exposure column, including curbing between haves and have-nots, must be considered. 5. Social and related activities exposure. Human interactions have always been at the center of the human existence. Social relationships, work environment, business, worship services, sports, and many more require interactions. As it may, COVID-19 has exposed them as well. There is a substantial limitation in social interactions, which often encourages face-to-face meetings in order to get tangible things done. In terms of pandemic as this, such is rendered somehow unacceptable. The good thing is humans are endowed with the ability to thrive and use situations to their advantage if they make effort to do so. For the first time in the history of its existence, perhaps, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, held its E-Summit because travels and public gatherings are banned. Before then, the G20 countries also hosted a virtual extraordinary summit on the COVID-19 response on 26 March to get a coordinated response going. Similarly, religious bodies had to shift their operations, particularly through the radios, TVs, and internet. Many pastors never knew much about Facebook Live, YouTube, Zoom, etc., least to talk about preaching to their congregations through these social media platforms. Many had vehemently resisted and criticized them in the past, but they have turned to be the most convenient mediums of communication. Like other sectors, the religious community has also received its share of the exposure, as did sports and entertainment industry. In a nutshell, COVID-19 has taught this generation and possibly the ones unborn a lesson that we don't have to always congregate to do important activities together. The hidden benefit in this is the reduction of huge cost and loss of travel time. Moving forward, the following suggestions are worth considering in support of the practical change at hand. Face-to-face and in-person interactions are going to be limited after the pandemic. Everyone needs to prepare for such change. Requisite authorities, especially those managing human interaction-related activities, should derive more convenient and feasible models for improved social activities. Online channels must be promoted in a way that helps the wheels of the society to keep moving smoothly. Employers should give keen attention to stay home and work. Self-discipline is highly needed to being constantly energized and productive. In summary, the COVID-19 outbreak has exposed everything that has been working well to some extent, whether partially or otherwise in the world. And if we are to yield to the Greek philosopher Aristotle's assertion that change in all things is sweet, then our word is on the right path. Knowledge of changes and exposures is an important information in order to build a much better and freer world. As someone observes, crisis is change trying to take place. Hence, it is crucial to yield to the storm of change to avoid becoming its victim. Among all the exposures and corresponding lessons, we have come to one conclusion, that there is no safe haven on earth. Our final stop for this chapter focuses on this statement. The greatest exposure, no safe haven on earth. In 2014, when the Ebola virus disease broke out in Liberia, many wealthy individuals, especially government officials, ran to other countries. They went to seek refuge in other countries, particularly the U.S., since Liberia has huge historic ties with the Western nation. Some failed to return to Liberia in spite of the plea and threat by President Cllr to dismiss any runaway officials, especially those with dual citizenship status. They opted to leave the country with a 5G speed, and some never returned until the fight was won. Since it hinges on safety and life matters, we will not dive into the demerits thereof. But what is more intricate is the fact that many public officials are bent on relying on foreign medical attention to survive. Some presidents, particularly African presidents, even die in foreign land while seeking medication, which is somehow shameful and disgraceful. Forgive our harsh words. There is nothing wrong with it, unless it is done at the expense of the countries they serve. Unfortunately, this is often the case. It is totally wrong for public officials to neglect investing their country's resources, particularly in the health sector, to build specialist hospitals and equip them, but rather prefer to go overseas for medical treatment. The emergence of COVID-19 has taught harsher lessons in this regard. It has unequivocally spoken that there is no safe haven on earth. Country A or Z cannot provide the hideout for anyone. This may sound premature, but it is the fact. Imagine a president or senior official who normally seeks medication abroad, and now almost all flights have been grounded. God have mercy. In fact, some leaders are already falling prey to this negative seed and are paying the price with their lives. Again, we cannot overemphasize the critical lesson the COVID-19 pandemic is teaching about the absence of a safe haven anywhere. The way the virus started even marveled us. It began from top countries before reaching out to the small ones so that there would be no route for escape. There is none. It is an essential lesson that this generation and the ones unborn must take home and never forget it. Keep yourself reminded about it. There is no hidden place in any country on earth. If there must be any, then the best bet is to make your own country the safe haven. U.S. President Donald Trump is loved by many Americans not because of his regular tweets, but for his stance on putting America first. It is time for developing countries, especially those on the continent of Africa, to shine their eyes and put their countries first. It is time to put aside divided loyalty and dependency syndrome. It is very obvious that colonial masters won't always come to your aid, even with great intentions. They have the primary responsibility to put their countries and people first, as it is mostly the case now. Learn this and move on. Learn from great apostle Paul, who wrote, "When I was a child, I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind." 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. African nations are men now. Let the childishness of dependency syndrome be put away. If it hasn't been learned enough, let these tough times or painful moments push us to think and do better. In summary, the COVID-19 pandemic is strongly urging us not to remain the same because everything has been exposed in order to foster drastic improvements. One of the greatest mistakes one could make is to think things will remain the same always. This misconception has made us live ordinary lives and suffer significantly in terms of change. Stop envisaging that there is a safe haven somewhere else. This must be the beginning of true decolonization. Let this be the beginning of true independence. Again, the limitations of various sectors and systems, their vulnerabilities and absence of a safe haven on earth have been made known to the world. The only place we can look for such is the heavens. In the meantime, we must act in accordance with the change at hand, noting that life is a progress and not a station, says Ralph Waldo Emerson, essayist and poet. Let's make that progress together. It begins by identifying the golden sides COVID-19 is presenting to mankind so that we can overcome, thrive, and remain positive and resilient.
We are Project Liberia, Mama Liberia. Must all rise.
In the next chapter, our focus is on the identification of these golden sides of COVID-19. But in the meantime, here are key principles of this chapter to note and implement. Chapter Principles 1. Change always comes with unfavorable heat. Its misuse exposes one's weaknesses, but taking advantage of the hidden opportunities within exposes one's great potentials. 2. We live in a world where everything is possible. Even a disease in the form of a virus has the potential to shake and expose the foundation of human activities and existence, but man is always capable to triumph in the end. 3. Change is not a respecter of persons. It can expose anyone or anything. Ignoring it is like signing up to remain backward while adapting to the new future being created is the surest way to succeed. 4. Overconfidence in a man-made system is dangerous and could have serious repercussions. 5. Creativity and innovation are all-time necessities, not only in times of emergencies. Learn to think and solve problems in all seasons. 6. Failure to save is not an option. If you cannot save for the future, you are a victim of pandemics by default. 7. You are endowed with the ability to thrive and use situations to your advantage if you make an effort to do so. 8. Knowledge of changes and exposures is a piece of important information in order to build a much better and freer world. We are a blessed generation. We have them. 9. Humans don't have to always congregate to do important activities together. Our visions are bigger, stronger, and more intimate than our congregation. 10. There is no safe haven on earth. There is no hideout for anyone. If there must be any, the best bet is to make your country a safe haven.
Coronavirus spreads via droplets. When the person coughs or sneezes.
Chapter 3. Identifying the golden sides of COVID-19. Sweet are the uses of adversity. William Shakespeare, poet, playwright, and actor. Every occurrence, every activity, and every adversity comes with two sides, the good and the bad. This determines the difference between winners and losers. Everything depends on how they conduct themselves and which side they rely on more. As the coronavirus tracks, it has also come with these two sides. Unfortunately, in most cases, many don't see the winner's side, and they end up paying a huge price for this. In this chapter, as gloomy as the pandemic may be, we will unveil hidden opportunities referred to herein as golden sides of COVID-19. The chapter provides the pathways to overcoming adversity through the types of questions to ask and where to look through first-hand experience. The chapter concludes by identifying 5 golden sides of COVID-19. Welcome to the place of overcoming. COVID-19, Adversity and Its Hidden Opportunities. After 2 decades of intensive research about over 500 highly successful people in America, Napoleon Hill wrote his all-time best-selling book, Think and Grow Rich. Though published in the 1930s, its contents are still relevant today than ever. One of Napoleon's conclusions about trying times was, in every adversity, every failure, and every heartache carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Remember, Napoleon said every adversity, every failure, and every heartache. He did not say some, but every. Take keen note of the every being underscored or highlighted. Keep this in mind as you go through the remainder of this book. This means that the adversity of COVID-19 is inclusive. Say it differently. It means that the current adversity as one of the world's worst outbreaks still has equivalent or greater benefits in it. The assertion does not ignore the fact that difficult times do not come with a huge price, especially the current nightmare facing the world in the form of a virus. No one is insensitive to the huge death tolls across various continents, particularly in Europe and the Americas. It does not ignore that reality. But in spite of this, the world and those of us who have been permitted by God to be alive have the privilege to enjoy the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. We decree and declare that you and your household will experience greater benefit from this outbreak. If you truly believe this, you are definitely going to receive it. Apart from the 500 successful people Napoleon studied and derived at this conclusion, we have also examined the lives of many individuals who have made and are still making great contributions as a result of the huge tough times that confronted them. Pages of this book would be overloaded if we were to dive into every available literature regarding how tough times have triggered the seeds of greater benefits in thousands of heroes and heroines worldwide. Ancient stories of Joseph, Job, Esther, Naomi, to Paul and Jesus, from Helen Keller, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela to Oprah Winfrey and Jack Ma, and the list is endless. All of them were confronted with tougher adversities in their respective lives. The good news is that all of them got more than double the price they have paid to overcome. If it were not because of adversity, we would doubt as to whether they would have accomplished that much. Though it was tough, they identified sweetness in their tough times. In support of William Shakespeare's observation, sweet are the uses of adversity. Indeed, when you use adversity like this well, you will find sweets in it that will impress and amaze you. This is why this book is helping you to do. In spite of this, if you still have negative thought towards adversity, never mind. You are not alone. For many, adversity should not be remembered, and no new one should ever come their way. They wish tough times must not have existed in this world of ours in the first place. However, for others, it has been a starting point of major breakthrough, discovery, transformation, better life, and clinching of unimaginable successes. We hope that before the conclusion of this chapter, you will find calm and peace and join those who often see adversity as a starting point of major breakthrough, discovery, transformation, better life, and clinching of unimaginable successes. We will give you one of the adversities and hidden opportunities therein, as well as identify possible opportunities, which we refer to as golden signs of COVID-19. In view of the aforementioned, be aware that if it were not for tough times, adversity, the authors of this book wouldn't have written this book at all. It is because of adversity that this book is written. Let's take a look at one of the adversities that changed the life of the lead author of this book and hidden opportunities that came with it. Mother's untimely demise unveils hidden opportunity. First, let me say it sounds unpleasant to say that an awful incident unveils opportunity. Maybe it does not make sense to you. Notwithstanding, it is true and real. You must have the courage to find hidden opportunity in every adversity that comes your way, including this COVID-19 pandemic. If you fail to do this, you are likely to face two detrimental effects. 1, you are likely to retrogress in your life. And 2, you are likely to unfortunately become a victim of the situation. You don't want those two consequences, do you? We don't. And we equally guess you don't want them as well. It is the desire of everyone to make progress in life every day, even during adversity, rather than falling prey to its negative effects. But to achieve this, you must rather prefer to explore the hidden opportunities in every tough situation. You need to find the golden side or hidden benefit that lies within every problem in order to get equal or greater benefit. In most cases, there are always greater benefits in any prevailing situation because of the Creator's promise for would-be overcomers like you. A disciple of Jesus, John, once wrote, "He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son." Revelation 21, verse 7. After you have overcome, the Creator is prepared to grant you the chance of inheriting all things. But the requirement is, first, overcome. This is magnificent news, isn't it? All you need to do is first overcome. That's all. Afterwards, you will receive its benefit. What kind of tough times are you going through right now? Is it the worries and anxieties about COVID-19? Is it testing positive of an incurable disease? Is it a broken relationship or loss of a loved one? Is it poverty that is stopping you from living your life to the fullest? Whatever situation it may be, just know that there are hidden opportunities therein. Make a decision to seek those opportunities. Make a decision that you will do everything possible to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, let me now take you through one of my toughest times and the opportunities that followed after overcoming it. Once upon a time, there were two lovely sisters, having grown up in a remote village in rural Liberia. Both got married and settled down with their husbands. The elder sister, my foster mother, I would henceforth refer to as beloved mother, was the head wife of 3. Her younger sister, my biological mother, is the only wife of her husband, my father. Both were highly blessed with the fruit of the womb. But they did not have the same grace to bear children of both genders. My biological mother was blessed with both male and female children, one after the other, while her elder sister was blessed with females. She has given birth to about 7, all females. As a head wife of 3, having a male child in an African culture plays a key role in winning the husband's heart to maintaining one's position in such polygamous family. As a result, she was greatly yearning and in need of a boy child. But because she didn't have that favor, this was far from reality. "Please, your next male child you will give birth to should be mine," she pleaded with her younger sister as a solution to end her displeasure of not having a male child. The request was accepted by my mother and dad. As I was told, I became that predicted, expected, and chosen son. But before I was turned over to her, there were a series of challenges as both families were separated by the civil unrest in Liberia, which erupted a few years after my birth. It took some years for it to materialize, but eventually it did. I was turned over to my beloved mom, the one who taught me the power of burning desire and persistence. Let me quickly inject that your desire and persistence can break every obstacle and make your dream to be realized. My turning over to the one who predicted my birth and anxiously expected my coming was the beginning of a new chapter in my life. In her hands, as a mother, I got all the love and care that I had never imagined. She did all that was humanly possible, including paying my school fees on time and keeping me healthy and safe, and even explored all other necessary opportunities with her many daughters, my sisters, to give me room to get the best, including education. What an amazing motherly love it was. For nearly 12 years from elementary through college, she watched and fully participated in seeing me grow holistically. Increasingly, signs were on the world that I would be a success. As my part of the deal, I reminded myself each day, I must make her proud. To me, this was my only means of appreciating her countless sacrifices. I remember studying so hard during grade school and getting about 4 to 5 double promotions, including completing 11th and 12th grades in a single year. I was obsessed about doing well to bring pride to my beloved mother. I'm still like that today though. Part of this granted me a scholarship opportunity to pursue a master's and PhD abroad. When I left for my master's in August 2012, I did not know this would be my final physical contact with my super champion. While undergoing my academics for nearly 2 years, the line of communication was always opened, and she was always concerned and keen about my life and study progress. Besides the Creator, she was the energy, strength, and secret behind my academic excellence. Every time, it was a resounding bell in my ears. I've got to make her proud. I've got to make her proud. I've got to make her proud. Throughout my study period, I experienced joy and gladness within, as the journey was smooth because I was determined and purposeful, and most of all, I had exotic motivation triggered by her love and care. As a result, I came first among my colleagues in many areas. In the final work, thesis defense for example, I received all excellent from all committee members, paving the way to graduate with an International Excellent Student Award. It was in recognition of my outstanding performance in the university. Immediately, celebrations began as the job was done and graduation was certain. Ahead of the graduation, gifts, special ones for my beloved mother, were packaged and shipped. Finally, the D-Day graduation came and the excitement intensified. But through it all, my mind was settled on special appreciation upon return home to celebrate with the reason for the success, my darling mother. A big celebration was in the making. Without any clue, 3 days after the graduation, with my International Excellent Student Award, the saddest and greatest adversity of my life came. Yeah, you got it. She is no more. No, I insisted. But the explanation of this hard-to-hear story continued. She was knocked down by hypotension. She was rushed to the hospital and died on or before arrival. Oh my gosh! And so it was. My beloved mother's journey on earth had ended without celebrating my great accomplishment and bidding me farewell. For me, what is life, and why was I here in the first place? It was like all was lost, and no reason to be alive again. I was devastated. I had more questions than my mind could answer. If I had any answer at all, it was my worst life experience ever. Suddenly, my positive emotions from the graduation disappeared and deep sorrows set in. I must now face the uneasy reality of life, the death of the person who was standing for me, who I wanted to make very proud. It was in this tough adversity that I discovered a message that will profit me for the rest of my life, and possibly it will remain the key to my greatness and true fulfillment in life. The pathway to overcoming adversity requires seeking its benefits. No one would think of finding something of benefit in such adversity as mine. Would you? Maybe not. But again, remember when we said, it is not ignoring the fact that difficult times do not come with a huge price. They often do. Like in the case of mine, I would never pay back directly the good that she has done for me. I will never enjoy her motherly love and care again, not on this earth again. There is no bigger price to pay than this, I guess. This is not the more important now. The more important thing is how I overcame it and what you can learn from this troublous time to help you through any difficulty you are facing today or would face in the future. First of all, when facing severe, tough times, you must be cautious about two things. 1, types of questions to ask, and 2, where to look. I will deal with the second aspect for now, which helped me the most to overcome the untimely loss of my beloved mother. We will address the first aspect in the next subheading when we launch to identify the golden signs of COVID-19, which is the main focus of this chapter. By the way, where to look, core foundation of this book. We have advised that you look at the golden signs, positive signs of tough times, COVID-19. And this book is an important where to look document. Back to where to look. We wish to announce to you that the authors of this book are devoted Christians from the same church, Salvation in Christ Ministries Incorporated, Liberia. As believers in the Lord Jesus Christ, in times of difficult situations, there is no better place to look than in the Word of God to understand His mind and will towards those He created. And this is exactly what I did. This is not a novel idea, but it is always novel. We highly recommend that you do it whenever facing tough times. Your knowledge through such endeavor will save your life. We guarantee this 100%. It's true. An ancient believer, Daniel knew where to look when the worst tough moments came upon him and his people, the Israelites. In his book, he wrote, "In the year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of years, whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. And I set my face unto the Lord God, to seek by prayer and supplications, with fasting and sackcloth and ashes." Daniel 9:2 verse 23. When you follow the rest of the story, you realize that Daniel's generation did not only overcome in far less time than it was planned, but also he personally acquired skills and understanding to deal with the situation amicably. This is what we are suggesting you do. Find where to look and you will find great answers that will change your life for the better. Of course, this book provides a wonderful opportunity for you to do so. It will expose you to learnable skills and a better understanding of tough times and how you can manage your affairs well. Read it, share it, and recommend it to other people who you think it could be profitable to. Remember, failure to consciously know where to look does come with serious consequences. Another account of the Israelites was a promise by their Creator to spend 400 years in captivity due to their rebellious attitudes. But this promise was extended to 430 years, since they never knew where to look, and to govern themselves accordingly. They paid a huge price of an additional 30 years of sufferings, and eventually they forfeited the promised land as a consequence. You see how crucial it is to know where to look? Do you see? In times of adversity, don't act like frogs and crabs at night. When you shine light on them, they think that if they won't see you, you won't see them. By this way, they are caught. Don't be a part of crab-frog mentality. Keep your eyes opened and look where it matters most. In this COVID-19 pandemic, many have fallen and others continue to fall because of the misuse of where to look. This is because when you lack knowledge, the burden of loss, failure, and rejection is likely to be upon your head more than you can ever imagine. Hence, we are glad that you are getting useful knowledge from this material. It takes little to find a place to look, but the returns are unending. Going back to my story, where did I look? I guess by now you already know. The Bible, of course. As Apostle Paul would say, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. I sought the face of God, and the answer came in a timely manner, from Matthew 25 verse 34 to 40. 34. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. 35. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. 36. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. 37. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? 38. When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? 39. Or when did we see you sick, or in prison, and come to you? 40. And the king will answer and say to them, Assuredly, I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. More than other, this was the message I needed the most to regain my freedom. Service to others is service to God, was my conclusion. In other words, my beloved mother's service to me was not actually to me, but to God as she was paving her own way to heaven. This understanding changed my whole life, and it took away all my worries, sorrows, and pains at once. To me, this message was the one that replaced my despair with hope, sorrows with joy, and apparent death with a joyous life. Frankly speaking, they are the most important words I've ever heard until now, and will perhaps be the best words throughout my life. They are credited as the seeds planted, which are borne fruits in my life to be of service to others always. This is a clear demonstration that words have the power of life and death. Use them carefully. As an opportunity in disguise, this single adversity has made me see the bigger picture of life and the main reason for the existence of mankind. It has strengthened me to render services to hundreds of people far and near, without thinking about direct, immediate, or future benefits once it adores the Creator. And as David would say, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Proverbs chapter 11 verse 25. Through service to others, I have been impacted a great deal than I have ever imagined. Without a doubt, a huge part of my success is attributed to my service to others, and this book too is credited to this service attitude, a burning desire to help others like you in times of emergencies and tough times. If you are going through tough times like I was in 2014, or the current COVID-19 pandemic has placed you in this unfavorable category, we want to say never mind. Muster the courage and remain calm. Stand still and see the redemption that is ahead of you. If I could receive freedom and joy after this sad event and continue to receive the greater benefit the Creator has promised, then we are very confident that yours is on the way. Have faith. Believe it is possible. Look where answers can be found and get your healing, which is already underway. Cognizant of the fact that the situation of COVID-19 has come with huge tough times, we would like to use one of the remedies proposed earlier for dealing with the situation. It is about types of questions to ask. It is pretty fine for you to apply the strategy that was used to overcome the huge loss of my beloved mother, to recover and move on. Yes, you could do so by paying keen attention to where to look. Of course, in the COVID-19 situation, you could choose to look to God, who we strongly believe is the Creator of mankind. Through this word, His supernatural power is able to see you and your family through this menace. You could choose to look in His book, as we are providing you some relevant means of overcoming, thriving, and remaining positive and resilient. Let's now dive into types of questions to ask. Questions create quest and reality. Meet Brian Tracy, Today, Brian is one of the top business consultants in the United States and one of the most popular professional speakers in the world. Also, to his credit is the experience of working with more than 500 companies of all sizes, inclusive of the Fortune 500, according to his profile. As a New York Times best-selling author of over 70 books, many published in different languages, Brian speaks to more than 300,000 people worldwide each year on subjects of personal and corporate effectiveness. His video and audio learning programs are used worldwide to teach leadership, sales, personal success, and time management. According to Celebrity Net Worth, Brian is worth $15 million. It sounds interesting, right? I believe it is. But let's look at the flip side of this great role model. Brian Tracy started at the very bottom, perhaps below your current level. As he began his adult life, he was uneducated, unskilled, and unemployed, and working at odd jobs as they came along. But what broke the camel's back? A single question. Yes, a question did the job. In his book, The Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires, Brian explained how he asked himself, why are some people more successful than others? Through this, he desired to know, how is it that some people start off with nothing and eventually become millionaires? As it is always the case, the question set him off on a search for the answers, which had made him one of the best success coaches the world had ever known. Brian is among thousands of people who have amassed huge success in life as a consequence of asking relevant questions. Albert Einstein is considered one of the best geniuses of all time because of two things: curiosity and questioning. One of his popular quotes is, "Question everything." We may not join Albert to ask you to question everything, but we would like to encourage you to ask the right questions. We believe that this is the difference maker, right or relevant question, because the kind of questions you often ask can make or break you. And as the French philosopher Alexandre Voltaire wrote, "Judge a man by his questions rather than by his answers." We can't agree with Voltaire enough. It is the type of question you ask that prepares you toward the answers. Hence, a question creates quest for the kind of answers that would come forth. Your motivation, your purpose, your will, and everything is wrapped in the questions that you often ask. We can then say, ask a question and we will tell you not only the answer you are likely to get, but the kind of person you are on the inside. Put it differently, at the end of the day, the questions we ask of ourselves determine the type of people that we will become, says Leo Babauta. Do you agree? If you don't, let's go through a short questions exercise. We are going to ask negative and positive questions. After each part, negative or positive, reflect on your emotions. Are you ready for this? Good. Let's go. Questions exercise. Part 1. Negative questions. Why me? Why am I so dumb and stupid? Why am I so unhappy? Why do people hate me so much? Why am I always very unlucky? Part 2. Positive questions. What am I good at? What am I grateful for? Why am I so loved and appreciated? Why are some people more successful than others? What is in this situation for me, and what can I learn from it? From the questions asked, you can now observe a great difference. When you asked yourself negative questions, all you could think about was negative answers. And these negative answers in return brought about negative emotions. The negative emotions then brought about anxiety, fear, stress, and depression. In short, the negative questions have negative implications for recovery and success. They are likely to contribute to breaking you down. Therefore, we would like to advise you to take negative questions and utterances out of your conversations, especially when going through difficult challenges of life. On the other hand, did you feel better when you ask yourself positive questions? Our own experience tells us that you did. Your mind immediately went to work to impress you with positive answers. In return, positive emotions like joy, hope, love, gratitude, satisfaction, cheerfulness, motivation, optimism, happiness, and many other positive emotions showed up. When going through severe challenges, what more would you need most, apart from these positive emotions triggered by positive questions? Think about it. In conclusion, a relevant question, positive, is one that opens doors and solves most of your life challenges. Questions are the beginning of deliverance and learning beyond the surface. Questions have always and will always be key to innovation, creativity, and unimaginable accomplishments in the world. Questions can create your purpose, identity, your strengths, build your mood, and help you find ways of doing things better. Questions have been responsible for many to start the quest to change the course of their lives, as Brian and others did. Questions have been primarily responsible for more likability, trust, and rapport with others. Questions have been one of the weapons we've used to remain motivated and resilient in all situations. Hence, learn to ask the relevant questions. If you do, we will see you in the cycle of motivated people. The important question to ask in tough times. First, we would like to remind you of two takeaways that you must not lose sight of. They are: 1. Questions are like self-fulfilling prophecies. They create your quest and reality. Therefore, we must ask positive questions to get a positive reality. 2. Adversity is not evil. Rather, it is a blessing in disguise. Say it differently. Don't treat trial as an enemy. Rather, treat it as a friend and teacher coming your way to lift you up to the higher level of your life. Keep those 2 points at the back of your mind. Never lose sight of them. Now, let's get to your point of view. Utilizing your knowledge about the types of questions to ask. If you were asked to give one most important question to put you at the advantageous position amidst the COVID-19 pandemic or any difficult situation, what could it be? Think for a moment. We believe that you have given your insight. It's very important. Thank you. But actually, there is no wrong question if you are sure it will help you to overcome the situation. Take note of the highlighted. If you are sure it will help you to overcome the situation. It depends on you. We are looking for a problem solver here. If it will help you do so, then it is your most important question. We say this because what might be the most important question to the authors of this book might be different from yours. Sometimes that's how life goes. However, in view of psychologist Carl Rogers' assertion, what is most personal is most universal. We would like to proffer a question that we think is a panacea to worst effects of emergencies and tough times. Of course, it is not. Why me or why us? It cannot be. Why is this generation so unlucky? It cannot be any negative question. It has to be a positive question. It doesn't have to be a complex question either. In fact, it is one of the positive questions we asked earlier. Yes, it is. It is question number 5. What is in this situation for me, and what can I learn from it? It is a deep question, and we must treat it cautiously. It has 2 parts. First part, what is in this situation for me? Note, that is not meant for you to explore the negatives of the situation, rather to look in the hidden opportunities that you could explore as a result of the inevitable and unexpected situation. Remember Napoleon's conclusion. In every adversity, every failure, and every heartache carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. You are using this question to launch and find out the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit the situation is bringing to bear. It is key to overcoming and inheriting all things or getting the greater benefit therein. The second part, what can I learn from it, is equally important as the first. Today's adversity is a deposit into tomorrow's future. Hence, there is always something positive to learn from tough times such as these, which no amount of practical training could help you get. The secret for your forward march lies in this. Nobody puts it better than Anthony Robbins, who said, "The secret of success is learning how to use pain and pleasure instead of having pain and pleasure use you." If you do that, you are in control of your life. If you don't, life controls you. Learn from your tough situation, and you will never be the same person again. Noting the important lessons adversity teaches, one of the concluding chapters focuses on key lessons to learn from the COVID-19 pandemic. Watch out for that. But in the meantime, let's use our most relevant question. What is in this situation for me, and what can I learn from it? To briefly explore the golden sides of COVID-19. Note that what is in it will be treated under the lessons to learn in chapter 12. Identifying the golden sides. Having found the panacea to curing our adversities through types of questions to ask and where to look, let's now apply the first aspect of the COVID-19 pandemic based on the most important questions asked. Already, for where to look, this book is providing a vital pathway. But if you are a Christian, the Bible would be the best bet. Not even a tiny part of this book can do the work of the unadulterated Word of the Creator. Never. What's in COVID-19 pandemic? In one of my motivational books, The Champion's Thought, I wrote, "Adversities come like coconuts. The real food you need is deeply wrapped up inside. In order to eat that which is within, you have to crack it seriously and intentionally and remove the shell." This statement is typical of the current situation at hand, isn't it? In order to make use of a worse situation for one's advantage, it is a matter of must that you crack it seriously and intentionally before the answers can be found. Again, we want to reiterate that we are not insensitive to the other side, like the huge restrictions, loss of lives, economic declines, among others. But through an adversity or a catastrophic event, you have two choices. Either you cry until it overwhelms you, or you resolve to search for the hidden opportunities in it in order to become positive and resilient to overcome the situation. This is where we come in. On the flip side of the effects are the golden sides or opportunities. We are more interested in benefits because they would be the help more than thinking about the problems the situation poses, which has negative consequences. On the question of what is in this COVID-19 pandemic, we would say many things. Yes, many golden opportunities are contained in this situation. If you may, take a keen look at chapter 2 principles again. You will soon come to the realization of the extent of what is in it for you. Even realizing that there is no safe haven on earth, there is no hideout for anyone, and if there must be any, then the best bet is to make your own country the safe haven. It's worth 1,000 benefits. This is not an exaggeration. Imagine if our senior private and public officials can apply this principle in the discharge of their duties. You can now imagine how your country would benefit. In short, if you ask again what is in it for you, and you desire for us to answer to your question in one word, then we will sum it as change. Indeed, change is what is inside this for everyone, from top to bottom. It is not change in one area, but changes in all areas. As we argued earlier, COVID-19 pandemic has exposed everything, and this generation would have to grapple with the exposures and changes for the first half of the 21st century. This is crucial, in that those who would ignore these changes would miss much more and are likely to be on the periphery of life in the coming months and years. If we take Aristotle's claim that change in all things is sweet, it means the golden signs are there staring at us and waiting to be taken advantage of. The changes in health, economy, education, basic social services, among others, are going to be of greater benefit, particularly for the prepared. The seeds for transformation have been sowed by change. Knowledge of changes and exposures is an important information in order to build a much better and freer world. You may be wondering, is it only the change as mentioned? Is what in the situation for me? Relevant question. Sure, but change is coming with golden signs or hidden opportunities. You cannot see them until you pay full attention by looking at exposures and suggestions proffered earlier. You are halfway there. We are confident about this because the use of one or two of those suggestions could help you to make a break in life. Don't take them for granted. Meanwhile, we would like you to explore this question: what's in it for me? And think of potential benefits that you are likely to accrue as a result of this situation. Do this identification by yourself. It will help you a great deal because there are some things that are somehow personal and relevant to you that might not be unique to others. If you can't, don't worry. We will provide some suggestions for you and take you a step further because we love you so much and care about your resilience and success. In view of the aforesaid, and after thorough research, thinking and analysis, we've come up with some of the most important golden signs of COVID-19. They include golden sight number 1, reconnection to the supernatural. Golden sight number 2, human family reunion. Golden sight number 3, renewed thinking, innovation, and reinvigoration. Golden sight number 4, definite necessity of new education model. Golden sight number 5, reactivated human and economic interdependence.
We are Project Liberia, Mama Liberia. Must all rise.
From our perspective, the 5 identified golden signs are among the top ones the COVID-19 pandemic is bringing to the world. To make you visualize, experience, and make use of this worst situation for your good, we are going to devote one full chapter on each of those golden signs presented. Their discussion will not only open your eyes to realities, but also help you to maximize their use, thus giving you a huge advantage over the pandemic. Is that a deal? Great! Let's explore them together. But first, here are the key takeaways of this chapter. Chapter Principles. 1. Adversity is not evil. Rather, it is a blessing in disguise. Don't treat trial as an enemy, but treat it as a friend and teacher coming your way to lift you up to the higher level of your life. 2. No matter how great or tough an adversity may be, it still comes with some seeds of equivalent or greater benefits in it. But you must first overcome to inherit all things. 3. You must have the courage to find hidden opportunity in every adversity that comes your way, or face its detrimental effects of retrogression and victimization. 4. When facing severe tough times, you must be cautious about the types of questions to ask and where to look. They are the greatest panacea for overcoming and thriving big time. 5. It takes little to find a place to look during adversity, but the returns are unending. This is not a novel idea, but it always brings novel results. 6. When you lack knowledge, the burden of loss, failure, and rejection is likely to be upon your head more than you can ever imagine. Have good knowledge and timely information, and your life will be saved. 7. It is the type of question you ask that propels you toward the answers. Your motivation, your purpose, your will, and everything can be wrapped in the questions that you often ask. Therefore, ask the right and relevant questions. 8. Negative questions have negative implications for recovery and success. They are likely to contribute to breaking you down. Hence, take negative questions and utterances out of your conversations. 9. Questions are self-fulfilling prophecies, creating one's quest and reality. Relevant question, positive, is one that opens doors and solves most of life's challenges. They come with deliverance, learning beyond the surface, innovation, creativity, and unimaginable accomplishments in the world. 10. Today's adversity is a deposit into tomorrow's future, and there is always something positive to learn from tough times, which no amount of practical training could help you get. So, ask, what is in this situation for me, and what can I learn from it? 11. At the center of every adversity is change, which often comes with golden sighs or hidden opportunities, but you cannot see them until you pay full attention.
Such are coughing and shortness of breath. Call your daddy.
Coronavirus is real, but together we can fight it.
Official to you.
This has been an audio recording of the golden science of tough times, COVID-19, pathways to overcoming, thriving, and remaining positive and resilient when all hell breaks loose. It is written and published by Dr. Gbollie and Decelia Chesson-Wureh, and it's narrated by Mata Labindi, Grace Towell, and Michael Todd. We hope this book has been a blessing to you. For more information, you may contact the authors through this email address, charleson20@yahoo.com. You can also visit their website, http://charlesgbollie.com, or follow Charles Gbollie and Decelia Chesson-Wureh on Facebook and Instagram. Continue overcoming, thriving, and remaining positive and resilient in all situations, because once there's life, indeed, there's hope. Thanks for listening.
Everything is possible. It could be your mother, your father, even your sister. Let's stand together to fight this deadly disease now. From Asia to Europe,
Corona,
Europe to America,
Corona,
America to Africa.
Corona,
Take precaution. Be
Corona,
safe. It could be your mama, your brother, sister, or father.
Corona,
Let's stand together.
Corona,
Mama Liberia.
Corona.
God bless Mama Liberia.